here at the media availability or his weekly radio spot in Boston. Very honest, raw, and cathartic. After all, that's what we want from our athletes. Keyshawn J. Will Zubin, presented by Progressive Insurance. All of our guests, including the NFL insider Jeff Darlington, will join us in moments on...
You say that's what you want from your athletes, and then when they give it to you, it's a problem.
Yep.
Like, come on, man. Like,
the gift and the curse.
Right.
Every time.
You say you want honesty, you want me to talk to you. In the moment that I do,
just go play.
Get them.
Now it's just go play sports, shut up and dribble, all that sort of. Which one is it? Not you,
right.
But people out there.
No,
you know?
You're right about that. You're
That's
right about that.
So stupid.
We want authenticity more than anything in 2021.
Oh, he's selfish.
Right. The genuineness, the authenticity is all the stuff that sells today. Even if I am diametrically opposed to you, if I really believe it's deep inside your soul and DNA, there's something to that. There's real value in being as cathartic as you can be.
And Zubin, prime example of that yesterday when, the one video comes out where it just has Cam saying to the kid, I'm rich. And then Cam actually has to post the full video from his own page so people can understand, well, let me tell you how the conversation actually went, right? It always works out that way. It's beyond me.
It's incredible. He had to apologize, even though the whole conversation was started by the kid who had to initially apologize before Cam did. It's unbelievable. Jeff Darlington, ESPN NFL reporter, brought to you by Goodyear, helping you discover the road ahead. Goodyear, more driven. Jeff, good morning. I want you to listen to this from Cam Newton on the I Am Athlete podcast, which dropped yesterday with former NFL players Brandon Marshall, Fred Taylor, and Chad Johnson. And let's just say he may have lost some arm strength this past season, but he has not lost any swag.
My pride won't even allow me to do that. Listen, bro, there's not 32 guys better than me. Put it like that. So you're asking me,
where you at?
Bro, I'm not 32.
So,
real talk, though. But I try to tell you that, though, Jay during the season, as bad as he was playing, I'm like, man, that dude he is one of the top 32 quarterbacks. I tried to tell you.
Oh, I never said he's the worst quarterback in the league. He just wasn't having a great year.
You was just saying, like a lot of people, that he probably won't be a starter next year. He's going to be a backup this upcoming season. I'm like, no, not a chance.
And one thing, Jeff, I want to mention as we bring you in, we didn't play it, but he did mention that he honestly said that his battle with the coronavirus really did affect the way that he played.
Yeah.
Obviously, he wasn't even signed until June or July, didn't have a real offseason. Nobody did in the NFL, but there was a lot of mitigating factors. So after hearing that, where do you think Cam lands? Possibility of being a starter somewhere?
Well, it's interesting because whenever you hear that I'm better than 32 guys in this league, I'm not the 33rd or whatever, I understand it, but in a vacuum it makes sense. But when you take it out of that and start to apply it to every team, that's where it gets more complicated, because whether or not he should be on a team, a general manager is ultimately going to make that decision. And for him, I think he did a number of things that were really good for him this year compared to last when he was on the free agency market for several months. Number one, there were GMs last year who wondered how he'd be in the locker room. He's a polarizing guy, and again, that might not be all his doing. As you guys were just mentioning, there's this weird conversation that happens that feels irrational about him, almost everything that he says. But there were GMs that saw that and felt that, and these are risk-adverse people. So I think he did a really good job this season in New England of being a great teammate, a great student to Bill Belichick. Teams will notice that. And he also, by the way, stayed mostly healthy. And that was another big question. So while if we fast forward from last year to this year, not a ton has changed. And as such, he'll probably be on the open market for quite a while. It does feel like he did more good than bad and should land up on a team. Who is that? We always talk about Carson Wentz going to Indianapolis. Why do we think that's going to work? Because Frank Reich is there, right? So if he can go to Washington with Ron Rivera, doesn't that give us probably the most hope that Cam Newton can be what he once was?
Absolutely. You think about Turner, the offensive coordinator who worked with Cam in Carolina. You think about Ron Rivera, you mentioned as his head coach in Carolina, especially when they went to the Super Bowl and had an MVP type season. Coaches that have had you before believe in you and think whatever it is that's broken, they can always fix. Let me ask you this, though. You mentioned something about Cam and, personality and what people think, and all the general managers had things to say. What did you think about me before you start working with me? Be honest.
I mean, you're not a selfish person, and you've never written any books that would suggest otherwise.
He's exactly what I thought you would be.
No, I love Jeff. I love John. That's why I asked him that question. Now let me ask you this though: with another quarterback that could somehow wind up in the selfish category if he doesn't sign a long-term deal with the Dallas Cowboys and Dak Prescott. You know how these narratives and these things swing like the wind. Man. What's going to happen, and when are they going to tag him officially?
So just from the bookkeeping purposes, I'll let you know that today is just the start of the process. Today is the first day you can tag a guy. And generally speaking, just as it was last year, a team that is trying to reach a long-term contract will not tag a guy on day one because it just doesn't send a good message. They want to negotiate in good faith. That deadline is March 9th. Look, every year we've talked about this, like the Dallas Cowboys make it clear, we want to get something done before we have to tag him. Well, to be honest, based on my conversations, there's been no progress. There's been no reason for us to believe that the Cowboys are coming off of their mark or Dak's coming off his mark. I don't know where it ends yet. I don't know if Dak winds up playing this year on the $37 million tag. I don't know if the Cowboys ultimately say, we're not getting this done. We might as well tag and trade him and get as much as we possibly can. I don't know. What I do know is that Dak Prescott has set himself up for victory in this regard. He is going to get a long-term deal, whether it is in Dallas or somewhere else. And I think he'd be very happy to do that in Dallas. This is not a fractured relationship aside from the contract itself. So in that regard, I think that Dak Prescott has done everything right as a man and as a player to set himself up for the next chapter in his career, wherever that is.
JD, what franchise tag decision out there is the most interesting to you?
So the receivers in general, the Bucks, how they handle Chris Godwin if they tag him to bring him back. But Allen Robinson with the Bears is the one, to me, that has the most intrigue in terms of the potential fireworks. Robinson has been the good soldier. Last year, very frustrated, he didn't get his contract done, but ultimately, had another successful season. If they tag him, I just don't see him playing under the tag. I think this gets messy. And Ryan Pace, the GM, has showed no sense that he wants to give him the money that seemingly Robinson will deserve on the open market. So that one is the one that has the most potential for, I guess, drama and intrigue, because I just can't see Robinson playing under the tag this year.
It probably makes sense to tag him and package him and trade him, correct?
Yeah, I mean, look, tag and trades, I think, are getting more and more sensible because the team's basically saying, look, these players don't want to play under the tag. They're not happy about it. We're going to wind up dealing with a holdout in some capacity. So rather than wait for them to become a free agent, let's just, like you said, let's see if we can tag and trade them. And teams that are in win now mode are willing to give up compensation for a guy that they're ultimately still going to have to do a deal with. So we've seen it more and more the past couple of years, and we could see it again this year.
Jeff, you're an excellent reporter, as well documented. Not only did you break the news and cover the story of Tom Brady not only did you cover the story on Tom Brady and gave us what we didn't know, but what we do know is when players unfollow teams, it sends a message.
Yeah,
we see
right.
Teddy Bridgewater unfollow the Carolina Panthers. So does this open up the window for Deshaun Watson to land in Carolina and Teddy Bridgewater to be somewhere else?
It does, but it was always that anyway. The whole unfollowing on social media thing is kind of mind blowing to me. I wonder, Key, if would you have ever unfollowed a team? Like I don't see that in you. Like you probably would have just. I don't know. But to your point,
who knows, Jeff?
You just say what you were thinking. So they did go look and try to see about getting Matt Stafford. So I guess he could feel jilted by that. They did go and get. They're actively pursuing Deshaun Watson, and that could jilt Teddy as well. But it's not as if they're done with Teddy. They would prefer, and this is where it gets sticky as a player, when you start taking things personal. It's like, look, if my wife says, like, I'm not going to leave you just for anybody, but I will leave you for Tom Brady.
But, Jeff, you got to take it personal, though, when you're a player and you uprooted your family, even though they're